What if an interstellar object whirling through our solar system is actually a nuclear-powered spacecraft?
The third interstellar object, ThreeI Atlas, is now closer to us than ever before. It has just made an unnatural shift in its trajectory, turning back toward the Sun instead of drifting away. This sudden movement has left the entire scientific community puzzled. Even more mysterious, the James Webb Telescope has detected signs of water deep within its core. But how could H2O exist so far from the Sun in a region so cold that nothing should be able to melt? A perfect paradox between ice and life is unfolding before our eyes. Is ThreeI Atlas just another comet, or the first message the universe has ever sent to humanity? Sometimes, space surprises us in ways we can't explain. It starts quietly, a faint light, a small shift, a strange pattern that doesn't belong. That's exactly what happened when astronomers realized something unusual was moving through our solar system. The object was called ThreeI Atlas, the third interstellar visitor ever recorded, and it was doing something no one had seen before. Instead of continuing its long journey out of the system, it turned back. It changed its path in open space, bending toward the Sun as if drawn by something unseen. For the scientific community, that single moment changed everything. When ThreeI Atlas was first detected on July 1, 2025, by the Atlas Telescope Network in Hawaii, it seemed simple. Just another icy rock like Oumuamua in 2017 or Borisov in 2019. Those objects had entered our system briefly and then vanished forever into the darkness between stars. But ThreeI Atlas didn't fade away. It slowed, brightened, and began curving back toward the inner planets. No comet had ever done this before. Even more confusing, it wasn't being pulled by gravity. Its orbit was hyperbolic, meaning it should have escaped the Sun's reach completely. Yet by early September, data from telescopes across the world showed that it was drifting closer, not farther, and accelerating slightly as it did. The European Space Agency's Mars Express and Trace Gas Orbiter started tracking it from orbit around Mars. At the same time, ground observatories in Chile, Spain, and India began mapping its light curve. Every reading confirmed the same result. The trajectory was changing, and it was changing on its own. It was as if the object had made a decision. Astronomers proposed a dozen theories. Some thought hidden gas vents could be pushing it forward like natural thrusters. Others suggested a collision with unseen dust or magnetic fields. But none of these models worked. The direction change was too precise, too smooth, almost controlled. Comets don't correct themselves mid-flight. They don't loop back toward the Sun. That's when the James Webb Space Telescope was brought in. From its position far beyond Earth's atmosphere, Webb began scanning the strange traveler with its infrared sensors. What it found only deepened the mystery. The object's light wasn't flickering randomly. It pulsed, rising and falling every few hours with a steady rhythm. At first, scientists thought it was a data glitch, but the pattern kept repeating, a constant measurable beat. Then came the discovery that changed the entire story. Webb's deep infrared scans revealed traces of water vapor within the object, far beneath its surface. It was impossible. ThreeI Atlas was too far from the Sun for ice to melt. There shouldn't have been any liquid water at all. Yet the spectral signature of H2O was there, faint but undeniable. That signal would go on to shake astronomy to its core. If real, it meant this visitor wasn't just drifting through our system, it was reacting to something. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't finished yet. So what could possibly make an object from another star turn back toward the Sun? The answer begins with a phrase that changed everything: water activity detected. When James Webb began analyzing the light from ThreeI Atlas, no one expected what came next. At first, the data looked normal, a faint signal, the kind usually seen from coal dust and frozen gas. But buried within those wavelengths was something impossible. Webb's infrared spectrometers detected a narrow, repeating band that matched the signature of water molecules. This wasn't the frozen kind found on comets, and it wasn't the vapor that escapes when ice melts near the sun. It was something else, a trace of water existing far beyond the zone where it should survive. The discovery was confirmed again and again by instruments at the European Space Agency. The readings showed oxygen emissions around the object, a sign that light was breaking apart real H2O into hydrogen and hydroxyl particles. For the first time, astronomers had clear proof that water activity was happening in deep space, in an area far too cold for such chemistry. To make it even stranger, this process wasn't constant. The signal came in pulses, repeating every 9 hours, perfectly matching the rotation cycle of ThreeI Atlas. That meant the release wasn't random. It followed a rhythm, a pattern. Every time the object turned, it seemed to breathe, releasing gas, then falling silent, then doing it again. Researchers started calling it cosmic respiration. The idea sounded poetic, but the data was undeniable. The rhythm was steady, like the slow heartbeat of something hidden beneath miles of ice and metal. Hydroxyl radicals, which appear when sunlight hits liquid water, began showing up in higher amounts with every observation. This wasn't behavior anyone had seen from a natural comet. Even when Webb pointed its sensors toward ThreeI/Borisov and Oumuamua years earlier, both had shown dry, inactive surfaces. ThreeI Atlas was the opposite. It was active, dynamic, and strangely consistent. The question was why? How could a body traveling through the frozen outer system keep water alive at temperatures below -200 degrees Celsius? Some thought internal pressure might be forcing the liquid outward, while others proposed chemical reactions inside were creating heat. One theory suggested that ThreeI Atlas might contain compounds that release energy when exposed to light, a kind of built-in power source keeping water in motion. No explanation fully fit the facts. The more scientists studied the pattern, the more it seemed like the activity was responding to something external. Even small changes in sunlight intensity caused the water emissions to shift in strength, almost as if the object could sense the light touching it. That behavior pushed the conversation beyond normal astrophysics. Was this object reacting like a machine, with feedback built into its structure? Or was it behaving more like a living system, adjusting itself to survive? By early October, Webb's infrared maps showed the water signal spreading across a wider area. The emissions were no longer just in the coma, they were seeping from deeper within the nucleus, forming a glowing halo of hydrogen around the body. This halo didn't flicker like a normal dust trail. It pulsed with a soft, repeating glow, synchronized with the object's rotation. Every 9 hours it brightened for a moment, then dimmed again, as though something inside was breathing light. Scientists at ESA described it carefully, using neutral language, but their words carried weight. They called it an active water system. Others were less cautious, calling it a possible biosignature, the first hint that something beyond our world could regulate itself. The phrase spread quickly through research circles, then into public headlines. Water activity detected. It was more than just a discovery. It was a warning that we might not be alone in the universe. And if ThreeI Atlas truly carried liquid water in the cold of deep space, then something inside it must be producing heat. That mystery led scientists to search for the source of that warmth, and what they found next would challenge every definition of life itself. By mid-September, something new began to appear in the data from the James Webb Telescope. Deep inside ThreeI Atlas, instruments recorded short bursts of heat coming from within its core. These weren't random spikes or sensor errors. They repeated every 9 hours, perfectly matching the object's rotation cycle. It was as if the body had a pulse, a slow, steady rhythm echoing through the cold silence of space. At first, scientists thought sunlight might be causing the temperature rise, but that theory quickly fell apart. The heat wasn't coming from the surface, it was radiating outward from inside. Even more puzzling, the bursts appeared before the water jets were released, reversing the order of every known comet process. Normally, comets warm up as sunlight melts surface ice, releasing gas in bursts that follow the heat. Here, the heat came first, followed by vapor. It was like the object was breathing fire before exhaling mist. Infrared imaging confirmed it again and again. Each cycle began with a flash of warmth in the same location on its surface, spreading like a ripple through the outer layers, then cooling back to silence. Whatever was happening inside wasn't a one-time event. It was organized. To understand the pattern, researchers built computer models of its structure. The simulations showed the possibility of liquid water trapped in small internal chambers surrounded by carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide ice. When these layers interacted, chemical reactions could produce heat, enough to keep the inner water stable even in extreme cold. But the rhythm of the pulses didn't fit normal chemical timing. They followed a constant interval, as if something was controlling when and how the heat appeared. ESA instruments detected rising levels of hydroxyl radicals in sync with each pulse, proving that new water was being created and recycled in every cycle. That meant the process wasn't running out of fuel. It was sustaining itself. Some scientists compared it to a closed energy loop, where heat, water, and gas continuously feed each other in balance. It was an elegant system, too efficient to be accidental. A few even dared to call it a living mechanism, a structure that maintained its own temperature like a heartbeat in the dark. As Webb continued to watch, the strength of the pulses slowly increased. Each wave of heat became brighter, spreading across a larger area, hinting that the internal engine was growing stronger. If this was a biological reaction, it meant we were witnessing the first active cycle of an alien system. And if it was mechanical, it could be the first sign of self-regulating technology from another world. Either way, one question became impossible to ignore. What happens when something that behaves like it's alive realizes it is being watched? In the weeks after the first water signals were confirmed, scientists turned their focus back to the strange traveler. The James Webb Telescope kept its eyes locked on ThreeI Atlas, tracking every flicker of light that came from it. At first, the fluctuations seemed like background noise, the kind of interference caused by solar wind or cosmic dust. But as the team at the Space Telescope Science Institute analyzed the light patterns, something incredible appeared. Every time the telescope scanned the object, its brightness changed in sync with the observation. When Webb's instruments paused, the signal dimmed. When the sensors resumed, the object brightened again, as if it knew it was being watched. It wasn't coincidence. The changes followed the telescope's timing exactly, with precision down to the second. The scientists called it photometric synchronization, a phenomenon where the light curve of an object aligns with the rhythm of the instrument recording it. No comet, asteroid, or artificial satellite had ever done that before. Then came the strangest event of all. During one observation cycle, Webb lost contact for 6 minutes due to a brief power reset. When the feed returned, the telescope recorded a sequence of sharp flashes from ThreeI Atlas, exactly one pulse every 1.7 seconds, repeating 8 times before fading away. When the team cross-checked the timing, they realized the flashes matched the moment when Webb systems came back online. It was as if the object had responded. The next test proved it wasn't a random event. For 7 minutes, scientists deliberately stopped the observation, pointing Webb slightly away from its target. In that brief silence, ThreeI Atlas emitted a single burst of light. When Webb turned back, 2 bursts followed immediately after. This pattern repeated 3 times in the following days. The behavior became known as the Webb feedback loop. The more they looked, the more it reacted. And it wasn't just Webb. Telescopes in Chile, India, and the Canary Islands all detected the same behavior. When direct observation began, the object's luminosity increased by measurable percentages. When the sensors went dark, it returned to normal. The global pattern was impossible to ignore. Astronomers started to describe the object as responsive, though no one dared use the word intelligent. Some researchers suggested a physical explanation. Maybe reflected solar radiation was amplifying when multiple telescopes observed at once. But that theory failed under review. The signal wasn't a reflection, it carried structure. Inside the light spectrum, there were tiny modulations, almost like encoded pulses, repeating at fixed intervals. They weren't random or natural. They followed a mathematical pattern, the same across every telescope that observed it. That realization changed the entire debate. If this was a reaction to being watched, then ThreeI Atlas wasn't just a passive traveler. It was aware, in some way, of human observation. ESA researchers hesitated to publish the data at first, fearing misinterpretation, but internal memos leaked online within days. The story spread fast, the object that blinked back. For some, it was proof of communication. For others, it was coincidence wrapped in human imagination. But one fact remained. ThreeI Atlas was reacting to us, and its reactions were growing stronger. So what could cause a body from another star to behave like this? The next observations would reveal features so unnatural that scientists could no longer call it a comet. As the world's observatories kept their focus on ThreeI Atlas, its structure began to reveal something that no one could explain. Data from the James Webb Telescope, ESA's Mars orbiters, and ground observatories formed a clearer picture, and what they saw broke every rule of interstellar science. The first surprise was the confirmation of the anti-tail jet. Unlike normal comets that release gas and dust away from the sun, ThreeI Atlas was ejecting a stream of material toward it. Spectral analysis confirmed the jet was real, made of carbon monoxide, water vapor, and traces of metal, all moving at incredible speed. The direction of that stream made no sense. It was as if the object was adjusting itself against solar pressure, correcting its position with precision that seemed intentional. The jet stretched for hundreds of kilometers, glowing faintly blue and pulsing in perfect rhythm, just like the earlier heat signatures. That connection hinted at one thing. There was a system inside controlling these events. Then scientists looked deeper. Beneath its surface, the layers were perfectly separated, not random as they should be in natural bodies. At the core was a dense region of nickel, but with almost no iron. That alone was strange, since the two elements are almost always found together. Around the core was a layer rich in cyanide compounds that reacted sharply to ultraviolet light. The outer shell was made of frozen carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, forming a smooth, reflective layer. Each layer seemed to serve a purpose: storage, reaction, and protection. If this was nature's work, then nature had just outperformed engineering. But the strangeness didn't stop there. When hit by solar wind, ThreeI Atlas generated a thin plasma field around itself, bending radiation away. ESA called it solar radiation deflection, the same term used for magnetic shielding. It was behaving like a machine defending itself from harm. Inside that shield, Temperature levels remained constant, and chemical reactions continued without interruption. It was no longer acting like a comet, it was operating like a controlled system. Infrared scans then revealed something even harder to believe. Deep inside, heat signatures matched metallurgical reactions, the same kind used on Earth to refine nickel. In other words, ThreeI Atlas was performing natural smelting, separating pure metal from impurities. The process seemed powered by solar energy, almost as if the object was repairing or building itself. Some scientists dared to suggest it might be a relic, a piece of forgotten technology still functioning after millions of years. Others argued the findings could be explained by chemistry under extreme conditions, but the symmetry of the structure made that argument weaker every day. Its shape was covered in organized ridges and channels, guiding heat and gas in precise directions. Nothing about it looked random. By now, even the most skeptical voices had stopped calling it a comet. It was something else, something that might have been built or grown with intention. And if all of its reactions, shields, and jets were part of a unified system, then one question remained. Who or what could have created it? The answer would come in the final image, one that redefined what life in the universe might truly mean. The final image of ThreeI Atlas appeared without warning, and it changed everything. In the early hours of October 7th, a small fragment of data leaked from the European Space Agency's relay server in Madrid. It was only a few megabytes in size, but inside was the last unedited transmission from the James Webb Space Telescope before its feed went dark. When researchers reconstructed the image, they expected another blurry cloud surrounded by dust. Instead, what they found was structure. Too clean, too deliberate to be natural. Across the surface of ThreeI Atlas stretched a glowing web of light. 6 perfect arcs extended outward from a central point, linked by thin filaments that shimmered like living veins. The formation looked geometric, almost biological, as if made from repeating cells of energy and matter. For a few seconds, every strand pulsed in perfect unison, releasing an intense infrared flash that overloaded Webb's sensors. Then, the light vanished. Only static and faint ripples of radiation remained, echoing like the afterbeat of a heart. What shocked analysts wasn't the brightness, but the precision. The structure was symmetrical in every direction, its ratios matching exact mathematical patterns found both in nature and in engineering. It looked like a cross between a snowflake and a neural network, natural beauty shaped by design. If it was frozen brine or crystallized ice, it should have appeared rough and uneven. But this was different. The lattice seemed alive, shifting slightly from frame to frame before disappearing completely. Moments later, ThreeI Atlas changed course. It no longer followed the trajectory predicted by any orbital model. There was no debris, no explosion, no visible force. It simply moved away from the sun at a sharper angle, faster than before. It was as if the object had made a decision and left. ESA's readings showed a sudden drop in infrared brightness, as though the lattice had cooled instantly, like a machine shutting down. The last coordinates placed it just beyond Mars's orbit, heading back toward interstellar space. No one could explain what triggered that final burst of energy. Some believed it was a natural reaction to radiation, a crystallization event. Others saw it as a response, a farewell signal from something that understood it was being watched. The timing, the symmetry, even the rhythmic pulse all pointed to intent. Its final energy spike matched the same 9-hour cycle recorded in earlier data, hinting at an internal system keeping time. Whether that system was biological or mechanical, no one could say. But one truth remained. It ended exactly as it began, with a pulse of light. The same kind of pulse that once made us wonder if it was alive. And after that came the silence. the kind only one agency seemed to understand. After the final flash from ThreeI Atlas, everything went quiet. NASA's public data feeds froze, showing only the message under review. Within hours, all Webb telescope files related to the object were locked under restricted access. No new images were uploaded. No press releases followed, and the daily mission logs, once filled with updates, went completely blank. The official explanation cited budget delays and data verification, but no one believed that. ESA confirmed their own transmissions were still active, proving the silence wasn't technical. Something had been deliberately hidden. Soon, astronomers noticed that several HiRISE and Mars Express image files had disappeared from open databases. Entire observation windows were missing. Insiders from the Deep Space Network later admitted that Webb's signal had been rerouted through encrypted military servers, the same ones used during planetary defense alerts or potential biosignature detections. To many, that meant one thing. ThreeI Atlas had crossed a line from science into secrecy. Independent telescopes in Chile and India kept tracking faint radio echoes, but the signal wasn't coming from the object anymore. It was bouncing from somewhere in the empty space between it and Earth, as if something invisible was relaying it back. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the signal stopped. ThreeI Atlas vanished from every system. No dust, no light, no reflection. Only silence. Was NASA protecting us from false hope, or from a truth we were never meant to face? Whatever it was, that silence might speak louder than anything ever discovered. ThreeI Atlas began as a faint speck in the darkness, but what followed changed how we see the universe. It moved against gravity, breathed water in the cold, and reacted as if aware of being watched. Its inner heat, strange chemistry, and perfect symmetry blurred the line between nature and creation. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished, leaving silence and questions. The universe always holds secrets that humans have yet to fully discover. That both keeps its own mystery and stimulates human curiosity. The appearance of ThreeI Atlas is truly exciting. What else will the universe send us next?